Hello, everyone. Welcome to our national study. We have a great study ahead of us this week. This week, we will be concluding Masaaki-sama's sacred word, A Glorious Future We Near. In our last reading, we began looking at the relationship between the expression in Meishu-sama's sacred word, God, human, its meaning. This week, we're going to dive even deeper into the true meaning of that and what it means for each one of us. Also, its relationship with the salvation of humanity. I'm really looking forward to reading about this true significance and essence. Furthermore, why a glorious future we near. So stay tuned as we begin right after this. Welcome, everyone, as we begin our study today. Let us, in the name of Messiah, which is one with Meishu-sama, one with Jesus Christ, recognize that it is only with God's grace and Kyoshu-sama's permission that we are able to hold our study this week, that we can even receive Kyoshu-sama's sacred words and the true will of God and Meishu-sama. With this grateful heart, let us invite all our ancestors, all humanity who are alive within us at this very moment to return to heaven. And during the study, through the many thoughts and feelings that we feel and experience, recognize that it is God's very forgiveness that we can communicate to them, and together with them, return to God as ones who have been forgiven and saved. With this thought in mind, I like to begin our study with the reading of the church canon. Church canon. With great fear of God, we acknowledge that the Lord God is our true Father, the one and only God. We revere Meishu-sama as the model for all humanity and as our own example to follow. Meishu-sama, who was born anew as a true child of God, the Messiah, by receiving the divine will that God accomplished in heaven. We believe that Jesus Christ, who 2,000 years ago embodied the name of Messiah, the name most holy and high, is serving the Lord God in unity with Meishu-sama. We regard the sacred word of Kyoshu-sama, who reveals to us the will of Meishu-sama in this material world, as the sole, absolute, and irreplaceable foundation in advancing our mission here on earth. Words of prayer. God, I acknowledge that you are alive. Within me, you are alive. I thank you for nurturing me to be newly born as your child. May this blessing be shared with all. In the name of Messiah, which is one with Meishu-sama, I surrender myself to you. Please use me as you wish. So every week before the reading, we usually cite one or two posts from the Instagram of our mother church. And this week we have a great post as well from Masaaki-sama's sacred word in 2021 at Meishu-sama's birthday service. But before that, I'd like to invite each of you to follow the official Instagram page for our mother church. It's truly easy. You just open up Instagram on your phone. When the page opens, at the top of the page, you'll see under the name of the page, the button. Click that button to follow. You see the follow button. Click on that button to follow the page. Once you've clicked that, it doesn't end there. Make sure you click the bell sign at the top right-hand corner. Over there, you'll have the options to receive notifications, so you can get daily updates of the posts that you're receiving on Instagram. This is a great way to be connected to Kyoshu-sama through the holy seed of Kyoshu, receiving daily sacred words to align our hearts with the will of God and Meishu-sama and Jesus Christ for each one of us. So make sure you follow that page today. For today's reading, today's Instagram post, I like to read this with you today from Masaaki-sama's sacred word. And in this sacred word, Masaaki-sama shares the following. Even though Meishu-sama passed away, his work was not over, and it would continue under Kyoshu-sama. Even though Meishu-sama passed away, his work was not over, and it would continue under Kyoshu-sama. I mean, today, it's like I repeat this in pretty much every study, right? But it is so clear that were it not for Kyoshu-sama, we wouldn't be receiving Meishu-sama's sacred word or even know the direction to follow Meishu-sama's work. And this is even so more evident in today's reading. For if it were not for Kyoshu-sama, it's like we would have been stuck in time, right? We would have stopped when Meishu-sama passed away and never really understood the true purpose and will of Meishu-sama's work for this current age and time. We're so blessed for that. So with this thought in mind, I like to continue where we left off from last week for our reading. So in our last reading, this was about a month ago, on part 3 of reading the sacred word of Masaaki-sama, A Glorious Future We Near, we looked into the divine altar that we have, right? The altar that we have in our home and the divine image of Meishu-sama. And Meishu-sama's true intent of having that picture on the altar, right? As we saw, it was not for glorifying himself, but the very existence of God that exists within him, and as we are learning, within each one of us. So with that in mind, we pick up from where we left off. Masaaki-sama continues. He says, with this in mind, we have the 7th hymn, a very well-known one. Only I. It is only I who have been entrusted with the mission of God to save the world. Only I. It is only I who have been entrusted with the mission of God to save the world. For many years, we interpreted the only I in this hymn as Meishu-sama, the only one. Isn't that right? But it's not him. Then who is this I? It is the I that is within each and every one of us, God's I. It is I who have descended to the world with authority to save the sinful. It is this I. God is the one and only being. He created innumerable. God is the one and only being. He created innumerable unique beings out of his own uniqueness and oneness. This is not something that we can normally understand by thinking about it. But Meishu-sama plainly said, one God and many gods, both at the same time. In one of his hymns, he also uses the phrase, the Messiah is descending, carrying Jehovah, Yahweh, on his back. It went like the following. The world is enveloped in dark clouds, but look, driving them away, the Messiah is descending, carrying Jehovah, Yahweh, on his back. The world is enveloped in dark clouds, but look, driving them away, the Messiah is descending, carrying Jehovah, Yahweh, on his back. Messiah is carrying Jehovah, Yahweh, God, on his back as he descends. So if the soul of Messiah exists within each and every one of us, It means that the Messiah within us is carrying Jehovah, Yahweh, God on his back within us. And as said in the previous hymn, I, who have been entrusted with the mission of God to save the world. It means that God is telling the Messiah, our true self, us, in the truest sense, to save this and to save that within each and every one of us. Isn't that why each one of us is put in various situations right now? Just making a quick pause, right? Because as we experience life and the many challenges and the many things that go on in our life, many times we wonder, right? Why am I going through this? Why all this emotions, all these feelings, all this pain, all this sorrow, sometimes even all this joy? But usually we tend to look into the negative feelings and negative emotions, right? But look what Masaaki-sama just shared with us, right? I, who have been entrusted with the mission of God to save the world. It means that God is telling the Messiah, right? God, who is being carried by Messiah on the back of Messiah, our true self, us in the truest sense, to save this and to save that within each and every one of us. We are being exposed to these very things to bring that salvation. I am going to save, Masaaki-sama says. Only I will save. The soul of Messiah within each and every one of us is saying this. Meishu-sama is expressing this Messiah as I, right? Rather than expressing himself as a human being that receives, he's expressing himself as a divine being, as God, as I. I am going to save. This is a really a great point, right? As we look into this, because now we are diving deeper into this relationship between God and human, right? This very expression of Meishu-sama within the two. Meishu-sama not expressing himself as the human being that receives salvation, but expressing himself as the divine being, as God, as I. I am going to save. And then Masaaki-sama shares, so the depth of Meishu-sama's sacred word is not something that can be easily understood by human wisdom. This is very clear, right? Because for a long time, I myself trapped in this human wisdom, and the only way to see Meishu-sama's sacred word did the very opposite, where Meishu-sama I was perceiving as the human, only Meishu-sama being great, right? Not seeing God and the true meaning behind this sacred word. Were it not for the sacred words of Kyoshu-sama, Masaaki-sama, were it not for these sacred words that we're reading right now, this would be totally incomprehensible. As Masaaki-sama shares here, if the average human mind thought about this, it would end with only Meishu-sama is great. If they heard it is only I, it would conclude with only Meishu-sama is great. Other religions are no good. Meishu-sama is the only truth. It's sad to admit, but this is how I received it for such a long time. And we're so blessed now to be able to start seeing the true meaning behind Meishu-sama's sacred word. And Masaaki-sama says, now, if that were really true, why would Meishu-sama say work in concert with Christianity? Wouldn't this be contradictory? And just making a quick pause, right? Because I think many of us, as we've read Meishu-sama's sacred words, we have a tendency to have this kind of thought, right? Isn't this a contradiction? Meishu-sama is saying one thing in one end, and then he says something completely opposite on the other. And the reason for that contradiction is because till this day, we've been receiving this with human understanding, human intelligence, from a human point of view. And we can see just how crucial it is to receive the sacred words of Kyoshu-sama, of Masaaki-sama, because from that human point of view, like me, we would be stuck and never ever truly perceived Meishu-sama's sacred word. Furthermore, Masaaki-sama continues and he says, as such, in the end, when we have a glance at today's eighth hymn, we have no idea what it is saying. You have to be a human being and God at the same time. You have to be God and a human being at the same time. If not, you cannot save the world. Meishu-sama is saying in this hymn, I have to be human and God, and at the same time, I have to be God and human. Otherwise, I cannot save the world. I know that the content of this hymn certainly seems difficult, as we are not used to this way of thinking. I mean, we are used to thinking like humans, right? But if we are not like the way it is described in the hymn, and we can't save the world, then that's a problem for us, isn't it? We're not here just to receive salvation, but we are here to save the world, right? Just making a quick pause as we go back one slide here. And Masaaki-sama here is sharing with us, right? The content of this hymn seems difficult because we are not used to thinking in this way. We are used to thinking like humans. And I think this is very important because it goes to emphasize even more also the importance of this path, this religion, our church. If we only stay in a human world, human perception, human way of thinking, we can never truly fulfill our mission, our purpose, which is the salvation of the world. And even that, what does that mean? Without the holy seed of Kyoshu, it is impossible for us to truly perceive, right? We're here to do something more than just be human. We are here to save the world. And from the normal way, human way of thinking, that's not possible. So look what Masaaki-sama shares with us. I mean, if nothing else, many of you joined Sekai Kyosei-kyo, World Church of Salvation, didn't you? A church with teachings that is supposed to save the world, right? If you don't want to save the world, or if you want blessing only for yourself, then there's no need to join Meishu-sama's religion. After all, Meishu-sama's purpose is to save all humanity. It is pointless to simply pray and wish for something good. In that case, you don't have to be a follower of Meishu-sama. You can just go to a nearby temple or shrine, make a monetary offering, and that's enough. If you really want to save the world, even if it seems like I am saying something complicated to you, you have to recall the fact that your true self is the existence of I. In the hymn saying, only I. It is only I. If you don't, then you won't be able to save the world. So just another quick pause here. Two things that I find very, very important that really struck me on this. The first is the very purpose of why we are members, the very purpose why we are on this path to begin with. We're not here just to receive blessing, right? If we have that kind of attitude, I'm going to church because I want to receive protection, I want to receive blessing, and that's it. Then, as we're reading here, there's no point to say we're followers of Meishu-sama or even be a follower of Meishu-sama. For Meishu-sama's purpose is to save the world. And we are on this path to fulfill this mission of Meishu-sama as a follower of Meishu-sama, together with Meishu-sama. So that is very important, very crucial to look at. And the other point is that we have to recall who we really are. Our true self, our true essence, as Masaaki-sama is sharing here. If you really want to save the world, even if it seems like I'm saying something complicated, you have to recall the fact that your true self is the existence of I. In the hymn saying, only I, it is only I. If you don't, then you won't be able to save the world. And what I find interesting here is Masaaki-sama saying, recall this even if it is something that seems complicated, right? We have a tendency to say, well, when I understand this, I'll do it, right? When this makes sense, I'll try it out. But acknowledge this truth, even if you don't understand it, even if it seems way beyond your comprehension at the moment. Can you recall this truth in order to fulfill your mission of saving the world? So he says, so going back to the grand ceremony to celebrate the birth of the Messiah, looking at the Japanese characters in the service name expressing the Messiah descending and being born, I believe we, including myself, put ourselves on the receiving end when we attended the grand ceremony. But actually, that's only half of it. When we look at Meishu-sama's hymn from today, Meishu-sama is telling us the following: I fully understand that you are human beings, but aren't you also gods? If not, you cannot save the world. Then, even if belated, we can express our repentant feelings to God and Meishu-sama today at this monthly service for not being able to attend the grand ceremony with the thoughts I have been speaking about. We can say to Meishu-sama, the grand ceremony to celebrate the birth of the Messiah is also a service for me to remember that I do not only stand in the position to receive what descends, I also carry the divine being that descends. I am the one that descends. The soul of God has always been my true self. Everyone, let us repeat this to Meishu-sama right now. Let us express this very thought to Meishu-sama. The grand ceremony to celebrate the birth of the Messiah is also a service for me to remember that I do not only stand in the position to receive what descends, I also carry the divine being that descends. I am the one that descends. The soul of God has always been my true self. So if our true self is God, what would the graph that I mentioned at the beginning look like? If our true self is God, our life from now on would not look like a line that declines to the right, but a line that rises to the right forever. All that is waiting for us is a path that flourishes for eternity. A glorious future we near, right? In Kyoshu-sama's song, A New World, one of the lyrics says, a glorious future we near. Now, if it is the graph from the human perspective, what is waiting for us is a not at all glorious future. From here on to a future with many troubles awaits you. Worries about this, about that, worries about our own bodies, our families, our children, money. This is the kind of future that awaits you. But if we really carry a divine being, God within us, there is nothing but progress hereafter. Then we might start thinking, we may be told all this, but then there's the reality. There are various things that we can't tell others, or we have such and such disease. We are bound by many things. We have been shackled up. In today's sacred word of Meishu-sama, he says that Kanon will come from the place most high and descend to the place most low. Then Kanon will climb up to the place most high again. That's what he says, right? We may think that I am stuck, I am lonely, I am hopeless. Nobody can understand how I feel. I have hit rock bottom. But this rock bottom place we are in, this is where God descends to. For it is written that God descends to the place most low, right? We have long thought that we were suffering on our own, but that's not the case. The one who dwells in the place most high comes down to the place most low, that is, the place where we are. Why does God do that? It is for him to save the place most low. God is saying to us, you are experiencing this so that we can bring salvation to this. That's what he's saying. God descends to the place most low. What is the place most low? It is no other than our lives, isn't it? God descends to the place most low. What is the place most low? It is none other than our lives, isn't it? In our daily lives, we suffer and struggle, right? But we are not alone in this. The Messiah is with us. He is together with us, descending to the lowest pit. Kanon turned into Messiah, right? So the Messiah is with us. Everyone, just making a quick pause here. This is truly, truly special and gives us so much hope. I'm sure that many of us watching now, there isn't one person who hasn't felt being in the lowest of the low. There isn't one person who hasn't felt or might even be feeling at this moment that they hit rock bottom, that there's no way out, or that no one can understand their suffering, their pain, their illness, or maybe something internal that they can't even express, as Masaaki-sama has shared earlier here today. But you are not alone. We are not alone. And we are not going through this situation for some kind of punishment or suffering. The Messiah is with us at the lowest of the lows. He's with us together right now. And with us to save that very thing that we are experiencing. Look at how important a role each one of us is playing in our daily lives. The very thoughts and feelings we are experiencing are the very things the Messiah within us is here to save, together with us. Look what Masaaki-sama shares. That's not the end of it. But that's not the end of it, everyone. Now that you've been to the lowest place where there is no hope, it is time to go back to the place most high, together with the Messiah. That's what Meishu-sama is saying in this sacred word. You're not just at the lowest of the lows to stay there and say, okay, I'm here to save that. We're here to bring that back to God in heaven. And how to do that? Masaaki-sama says, I am talking about all the concerns you have right now, the very things that you're most worried about. And regarding those things, to put it in one way, you can say, oh God, thank you for sending me here. You're trying to save this place. You want to welcome it into heaven. Everybody watching right now, take a second. Think about the thing that concerns you the most. It could be a health issue. It could be a family member's issue. It could be a loved one's issue. It could be something at work. It could be something much more serious, or something that happened in your past, or a fear that you have of a future that is uncertain. Think about that very moment and now express to God, as Masaaki-sama is sharing here, oh God, thank you for sending me here. You're trying to save this place. You want to welcome it into heaven. This is huge, right? You're not just there to think about that and suffer that and, pray on that to relieve yourself of that. On the contrary, God is trying to save that very thing and wants to welcome that into heaven with us. So we can express that to God. Oh God, thank you for sending me here. You're trying to save this place. You want to welcome me into heaven. Masaaki-sama says, God goes from the place most low and returns to the place most high. He does this because he wants to welcome the very lowest into heaven. In the first place, what is the purpose of canons, Messiah's descending to the lowest place? It is to save all the very lowest things, isn't it? The very lowest things from our eyes would be the unthinkable, or things that seem completely useless. Those are the things that will be useful in the place most high. This is what God is saying to us. The things that we think are so low are the things that are useful to God. Isn't that true though? We were sent here for salvation, right? As such, it is okay to think, I offer this to you, or I surrender this to you. And in some instances, as we are in the position of God, it is good to think, I came to save those thoughts and feelings. Or, I came to save this. We can do this even though we don't understand the meaning of being a God. I think this is a very important point, right? Because even in the study, as we were holding the study in Portuguese, somebody mentioned, right? Oh, I have to practice a lot of this until I can get to that point, right? I don't think I can do this so easily. But look what Masaaki-sama is sharing here for us today. It is okay for us to express our true self is coming to the lowest place to save. So to voice out, I came to save this. We can do this, he says, even though we don't understand the meaning of being a God. You are being permitted. God is allowing us to know the truest meaning of this essence, God human. He's allowing us to live in this truth, and you can do this now at this very moment to all those situations that you find yourself in, the lowest of the low, because God needs that in heaven. God wants to return that to heaven. So instead of only thinking, oh no, or please help me, be bold. Recall to him, it is I who have descended to the world with authority to save the sinful. Apply it to yourself and then say, I came here to save the sinful. I came here entrusted with the authority of God. And this time, since you will go back to the place most high, you can say, I will bring this to God. Children learn a language by imitating their parents, right? If your parents speak Japanese, you learn to speak Japanese. If your parents swear a lot, you learn to swear a lot too. Now, we say we cannot hear God's voice. We say we don't know whether He is talking to us or not. Be that as it may, Meishu-sama is telling us that we carry a divine being within ourselves. If so, you must assume this to be true. Act as if you are a divine being and utter, for example, words like, I am here to save people. Do not say, please forgive me, but instead say, I forgive. At this moment, each one of us is facing some kind of problem or issue, or we think that our hands are full. But if in actuality we are here to save those feelings within us, we must utter words like, I forgive you, or I grant God's blessing upon you to those feelings that are within us. I'm just making a quick pause here, right? Because we have such a tendency to try to separate ourselves and God, right? But as we are learning in this sacred word, it is the existence God human, right? You can't have salvation of the world without that existence of God human. You can't separate that. And many times when we hear this, I forgive you, I grant God's blessing upon you, it's very easy to go into that human mindset, human way of understanding and think, I, Igor, the human interpretation of who I think I am, what I think I am, I can't forgive this. I can't grant God's blessing, right? How can I? I need to receive God's blessing. But we are being taught to see the world not from a human perspective, but from God's perspective, from our true self. It is a Messiah, God within us, our true essence that forgives. That essence doesn't say, please forgive me, right? It forgives. As we see in Masaaki-sama, as he shares, I mean, doesn't God use those kinds of words? He does not say things like, please welcome me into heaven, please forgive me, right? So if you wish to imitate God's example, imagine what God might be saying and start saying things like, I forgive you, I bless you. This is truly huge, right? We can do this to the very situations we are experiencing right now. As our true parent, our true father, God says, I forgive, I bless. Like him, we can do the same. And Masaaki-sama shares, if you continue to practice this day after day, you may be able to be born anew as God's child, just as a human child imitates their parent and one day reaches adulthood. So, although we certainly cannot understand God, let us imagine God as a being who would surely do something like that and say those kinds of words. Then perhaps God will characterize us as the graph not with the descending line, but the one that evolves forever, rising up to the right, on and on. Various things happen in our daily lives, and we are in a low place. But God is using all of it and is building a better and better world, a more magnificent world. Not only that, serving God is something that also continues after you die. You continue to serve God with more and more joy, even after you die. So why don't you start today? This is another point that really, touched me so deeply in this message is We don't have to wait till we die to serve in this joy, right? With this joy. We can do it right now. I mean, to all those hopeless and helpless situations that you have found yourself in, they weren't happening for no reason. The purpose is to serve in that joy of God, communicating that love and salvation of God as our true self that exists within us does and wishes for us to do. If that is the case, then from today on, you will grow younger and younger. I mean, the path of serving God is a path of growing younger forever, a path of evolving eternally, a path to becoming a new existence eternally. I believe Meishu-sama is definitely wishing this from us. We are not existences that suffer, die, end of story. Meishu-sama is wishing for us to flourish for eternity and build a wonderful world, saying to us, save the world. So in truth, the glorious future we near is all of us of World Church of Messiah. Isn't that right? And needless to say, with God's permission, if more people can come in contact with God's light, perhaps our fellow believers will increase. We truly have been sent to the lowest place. We have been sent, but it is for the sake of salvation. It is for the sake of salvation, for the sake of the world. I mean, there is no exception to the fact that we all physically wither away. Everyone deteriorates and eventually dies. But all of that, in order to fill everything with life, we are suffering temporarily. That's all it is. I know it can be long and it can be hard. Those are the times that we can encourage each other. And as we do this, let us go forward together on God's path of salvation. Thank you very much. In concluding the sacred words today, the reading, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to Kyoshu-sama, to Masaaki-sama, for the holy seed of Kyoshu, for tirelessly guiding us in this path. This sacred word of Masaaki-sama is truly, truly profound and special, for we can together, no matter how difficult the situation, no matter how hard, recall that our true essence is the Messiah that has descended to the lowest of the lows to bless and communicate and forgive all those who are before us, who are part of that, and return to heaven with them to be used by God as God is creating something completely new. If this is not hope, if this is not joy, then what is? All of us at this very moment have entered this path of joy, this path of hope, and we're being nurtured to be born anew as true children of God. What a blessing it is to serve God in His heaven eternally. So let's begin today. I look forward to our next reading, and may all honor, may all glory be returned to God always.